guys, and welcome to the next series. This is our 14 days of thinking like a pro. I'm your host, Chris KeyZ, and I'm very excited today that we have my good friend and guest here, Aleph Yonker. Say hello, Aleph.
Hello.
Yes, sir. So, man, I'm super excited today, man. We have another professional that's been in the game for 20 years plus. He's traveled around the world. He's been to France. He's been to Maui. He's been to Canada. He's traveled with major artist bands. He's just a hell of a guy, man. You're just that guy when people think of they need a guitarist or a fiddle player, especially crafted in the country market, I guess you would say, right? Would it be the country market or?
Yeah, I've been accused of being pretty country in my playing, so no matter, I can fight it all I want, but that's what I end up coming back to, so.
You can fight it all you want. All right, so let's jump into this, man, because, I mean, I know you, we've played, in around a couple things, but so let's just jump into it, because I'm curious to know, like, how did you get started even, 20 years in the game? Like, take me back to the beginning. Like, when did you pick up an instrument?
I was 4 years old. I got my first violin, and I took classical violin lessons for years, all the way through high school.
Okay.
Playing in the school orchestras and symphonies. That was in Wisconsin, so I know a lot of places around the country don't have orchestras in their high schools and junior high, but I was fortunate enough to have them in both.
Okay.
So all the way through high school as a classical violinist until when I was in probably a sophomore in high school, it wasn't getting the chicks, and that's when I started playing guitar. So
the violin wasn't getting the chicks.
It wasn't going to get the chicks, so I needed to be a rocker. So I fell in love with some classic rock music and had some buddies that wanted to learn at the same time I did. So
What were you listening to back then? Like, what was your band?
Well, I went through a skater phase.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a skater for a while, so we listened to a lot of punk bands. But I never had the desire to play that kind of music because I knew it was just to me it was a little childish. But
okay, so
musically speaking.
Okay, so all right, so let me get this straight. I'm just putting, all right, let's put this, so you're doing country now, but at the beginning, it was no country?
There was never any country music.
What were you living?
I lived in Wisconsin until the middle of high school, then I moved to Portland, Oregon, where I graduated.
Okay. Shout out to Portland.
Yeah, a little shout out, yeah. And I love that city, very clean city, by the way. I haven't been back since, but it was an amazing experience. I lived in Fort Lauderdale for just, I don't know, half a year or so after I got out of high school. And shortly after, right before I guess I turned 20, I moved to Texas, and that's when the country thing kind of hit me. So
okay, so the first 20 years of your life, you was musically, you was Wisconsin, Portland, Florida, doing, not really thinking about music as a career at this point. You was just, man, you just picked up a fiddle, doing the orchestra thing, and I guess like most kids, you're just trying to find yourself, and girls have a big influence of that around the age of 16.
Oh yeah.
So you transitioned still with music, but picked up a guitar. Mm-hmm. Did you have training for that, or it was?
No, but I did. My dad was a guitar player and a songwriter, folk style, so real good finger picking and stuff. And I learned simply by hearing that all my life.
Okay.
So when I picked up a guitar and decided, hey, I want to learn how to finger pick, that sound was always there, and it literally took me overnight to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
So it was just an overnight natural thing, and I was able to do that. And
I mean, that's. I mean, I guess if you orchestrate, I mean, so you kind of had the fingering, and you understood what it's supposed to do. Now you just have to put the skill.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Very nice. Very nice. So for you guys out there that may have been listening to, for me it was my mother and dad listening to records, cleaning up around the house. I think that just like Aleph, just listen. If you've been listening to music and a fan of music, go out there and pick up an instrument. You might be surprised how fast you can pick it up at any age. And that's just coming from personal experience, and you just heard it here from Aleph. So let's continue on. This is interesting. So 20 years old, you're not in the country yet, but you moved to Texas. Now, what made the move to Texas? Is that you wanted to now get into the country thing? Or I'm trying to get to this country. I'm trying to figure this whole, where did this country start? But
it hit me like a brick. My mother was moving to Texas. She had some stuff in storage back in Wisconsin, and I helped her bring it down here.
Okay.
And she came home one night from going out to a bar, and she said, hey, you need to check this out. You need to see what the live music scene is like down here. And it was really weird for me because it wasn't like that where I was from.
Okay.
So we went right back out to the bar. I wasn't old enough to go by myself, of course, so I went with my mom. And
cool mom.
I met yeah, she's cool. And I met the band after they got done playing. This was just a little podunk bar out in the, just north of Conroe. And I went up to the guys after the show and I said, hey, I really enjoyed listening to your music, and and they said, really, do you play? And I said, yeah, I'm a violin player and I play guitar a little bit. And they said, why don't you come out next Friday and sit in with us?
Nice.
So that was the first time. Of course, I didn't really know any of the tunes, but I have a skill set with improvising, so I was able to at least get in there and, I could play a lead ride over whatever they were,
Okay. So I remember my first gig. I was a little terrified because I started in a cover band, and most cover bands, they're playing for 2 hours or so they know like tons of songs, 30, 40, songs a night, and I grew up playing, church stuff. So it's like, for me, I knew none of this. I've heard the songs, but I didn't know how to play any of the songs. So you going in your first gig, were you confident? Or, obviously you were just playing over the top, but did you even think about that? Man, I don't know the songs, or were you just like, man, just give me a key and go?
It was more like, just give me the key and go. Yeah, and I'd heard some of the songs on the radio, like after I'd moved down, and they were real popular.
But you didn't spend like, I'm gonna spend 12 hours a night just shedding these songs.
No. And that's the funny part. I think I was telling you earlier. Yeah, that was that Texas Silver Spur band. These guys were backwoods. The small little off the beaten track honky tonks that, people would just get in, they'd go in there and they'd drink from 2 o'clock in the afternoon until they'd pass out in their bar stool,
right.
At 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever. And so half the people weren't really listening anyway. So it was more fun for us to get to play than it was for anybody enjoying what we were doing. So.
All right, so that's all right. So you started. Your mom introduced you, or kind of got you into the live music scene. Where, I guess you could say the professional scene. I don't know if you got paid anything that night, but so how did that transition to later on? You played for them for a while, or how did you move up to your next band, or?
I worked for those guys for 6 months to a year, maybe. And then playing some of when you play some venues that have different bands every week or whatever, you start, if you ever have a night off, you get a chance to go out and see who else is playing those bars or whatever the venue is. Okay. And you meet those guys, and if you like them, you go talk to them. If you don't like them, you just don't mess with them.
Right.
But, I got a chance to meet some other bands, some other local musicians.
So this was in the beginning stages of
absolutely
your career. So I'm just trying to just give little nuggets to people once again that are tuning in, that are looking maybe to get into a band, because that's a very popular question I get all the time. Like, how do I get into a band? How do I start? And I think that's a key thing that you were doing even then, was kind of networking with other bands and getting your stuff affiliated within that community, within your own community. Your own small community. And did that kind of transition and help you to the next stages of your, I guess, when you start making money as a professional? Like, when did that start? Because if you were just doing like little pickups, sitting in, did they soon hired you on, I'm assuming?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
I had the gig after the next Friday when I went out and sat in with that band for the first time. They hired me at the end of that night.
Okay, so once again, this is guy. He's ready. He's always ready from a young age.
No, and like, you know, and that's the money from the money. I mean, we were lucky to, you know, each make $50 a night. You know, I was making $50 for a night, and it was a 4-hour gig. You know, you either play, you know, 3 1-hours with breaks in between or whatever, and it doesn't take you long. You're kind of like hyper focused when you get on stage. I don't want to say it was the first time I was on stage because of the symphony stuff and other things, but you get really, your senses really get on edge. And that, I think, is what helps you remember night to night. If most of the songs that I know today actually are things I learned them on stage, not like sitting in my bedroom and practicing. I'd go out and they'd play a song, and I'd hear the guitar player would play the guitar solo, and I would usually go hear it later somewhere else just to make sure he was like doing it the way it was supposed to be. And if he was, then that was it, and that was set in stone for me. So if I ever wanted to learn it on guitar or learn it on fiddle or whatever, I could do that. They're definitely two completely separate worlds there. So
your learning curve really came on like on-hand experience.
Absolutely, yeah.
Very nice, very nice. Well, my learning curve was more like, okay, I'm gonna shed in the dark and come out and be. That's kind of cool though. So I mean, were you now this classically trained? Were you playing by ear then, or you could read music pretty good?
I could read music real well.
Real well. Okay.
Yeah. And lead sheets, you know, violin being a lead instrument, you know, you just melody lines or whatever. Which was a real battle for me when I moved to Texas and started playing. People wanted me as a fiddle player. Fiddle players are a lot harder to find than guitar players are. So I heard for years, I still hear it on occasions, you know, stop doing it, it's too pretty. You know, you're supposed to be sawing that thing, and you know, I don't want to saw anywhere near my violin. It's expensive, and but yeah, you can't be real pretty with a lot of it. So I mean, some of it, that Charlie Daniels style and whatnot, it's not supposed to be pretty. It's supposed to honk at you a little bit. So I battle that sometimes to this day. I still can't get it quite fiddle enough.
Texas will do that to you. Same thing here.
Yeah.
So let's transition on. Let's say when you moved. So how did you get? Because you're now in outside of Austin, kind of like in the Elgin, Austin area, Bastrop area. So how did you transition from Houston playing in that band to where you are, or getting into the Austin area?
My wife. We were not married at the time. We were just dating, and we had talked about wanting to move to the Austin area. We did it actually a lot for the music scene. We wanted to be somewhat a little bit more centrally located: Austin, Houston, San Antonio, and even, you know, we're even closer to Dallas now than we were before. So it's nice. And I was fortunate enough to, right before we made the move from the Houston area to the Austin area, I met a local guy out of, he lives in Taylor, and I started picking up some gigs with him. So I kind of already had a gig waiting for me when I got up here.
That kind of goes back to your early days of networking. So by the time you transitioned even to another city, your network was broad enough that it could kind of carry you all the way to another city. So how did you, did that come through some of the other bands or band members that you knew? Or?
Yep, you meet a drummer here, or a bass player here, or a singer here once in a while, and
so it's still that community, which is, I think I say in every one of my our podcasts, is that you got to network, guys. You have to if you're uncomfortable with it, then this might not be the best industry for you unless you're going to pay somebody to do it for you, but you're going to have to rub shoulders with people that's in your industry, and it's good to rub shoulders with people that are kind of on the same level with you, because you wind up helping each other out. You know, every I guess the famous quote that our pastor says is, every promotion comes from a person, and that's very true. Like, you never would have got that gig if you didn't know that drummer or that bass player. And you know, it's good, guys, it's good to know other family members, and you know, we're talking about music, it's good to know doctors and people that do basketball and other sports. But if you're trying to excel in your music career, you need to go out, like he was saying, when he wasn't gigging, he was still going out other nights and just supporting other bands and just saying hello, and you know, just whatever you was doing networking, and here it is years later, you know, you're transitioning to now your family, your married life, but that network helped you put some food on the table the minute that you moved to Austin, Texas, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
You know, so your peace of mind, let's just talk about that. So your peace of mind now, from the time you moved to Texas to even Austin, was that 10 years maybe, or less?
Yeah, I'd say roughly, maybe 12 or so.
12 years,
yeah, it was
more, okay.
Yeah, somewhere like that.
So around a decade. So what's your peace of mind so far? Your first gig, you're sitting there, you know, your mom introduces you, your $50 to, I don't know where you are now, but how is your peace of mind? Because a lot of people think, man, dude, if I could just get the band, I'm gonna make a ton of money, life is gonna be great. You know, I know for me, it was fun. I loved it. You know, my first gig, I came to Austin, my first gig playing, and I met the club owner. I was like, hey, y'all play. And he was like, oh, cool, you know, 6th Street, man, there's a lot of people, blah, blah, blah. And I think it was a new club or something. And I came back, I was living in Elgin at the time, and I came back, got my keyboard, rushed back, you know, and set up. Here it is, 7, 8 o'clock. I start playing, and that whole night, 2 people showed up. It was that bar owner and the bartender. She didn't fix one drink. And that was my first experience. But my mindset didn't change. I was like, dude, I loved it. I don't know why. I saw people walking by on the outside of the window. Nobody came in. I didn't make any money. They didn't give me a drink tab. None of that. But I'm gonna stick with it. You know. Wow. So that's just my mindset. Yeah. So how was your mindset going into this?
Mine has, I can honestly say, in all the beginning phases of playing music, it was always about, and I think you probably understand this better than some, is it was really all about the music. It really was. Yeah. I've fallen in love with some lots of different kinds of music. Right. I mean, the guys in the band, the guys that know me well, they laugh at me. There are 2 kinds of music that I love, and I love them equally. Really good music and really bad music.
You love equally good music.
Equally, I love it. I love it. I can see it just makes me feel good, and I think that's really what music's supposed to do. Yeah. And I know a lot of us. At times when you do this long enough, some of us, myself included, sometimes you lose sight of that. Yeah. And I've played thousands of songs that I didn't like the song, or I didn't, you know, sometimes I'm playing with guys that I don't care for very much for whatever reason. But that's where the professionalism comes in. It's if my wife and I get into an argument 30 minutes before I get on stage, I can't let anybody out there know that just happened. Sure. Or if there's, you know, I know everybody's heard the stories of, you know, oh, this group, man, they hate each other and whatever, and blah, blah, blah. But you don't see that when you go out to see them perform. They keep that somewhere. But my mindset to this day is, you know, I go out, I've got a job to do. Sure. I try not to see it as work sometimes. I never did until I had kids. It was never really a job until I had kids. It had nothing to do with how much money I made.
So let's transition kind of to that. So you said when you moved to Austin, that's when you met your wife, or your wife, she became a part of the picture.
Well, we were dating when we lived in the Houston area, and we decided to move to the Austin area together.
Did you think that would affect your music at any way?
I did. I was really nervous. Most of all my contacts were all Houston area guys, and I thought, man, I don't know the Austin scene. I don't know the venues. And when I was starting out and going into these places, when I was still single before I had kids, I was more into that networking. More, hey, I want to know that the guy that owns the club. I want to know this guy. Something I probably need to tell you, I never really had a desire to be an artist. You know, I've always just been a side guy, and I've been happy with that. I like I know my job. I know what my duties are. I know if I'm playing for an artist, it's not my job to make myself sound good. It's my job to help the whole. You know, it's we're all a team, and ultimately I need to make that front man look good and sound good.
Sure.
You know, so, and I know if I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing or playing something I shouldn't be playing, I need to focus and, hey, you know, this is what we need to do. And I struggled with it for a long time. You know, sometimes you get on stage and you're just into, I'm playing my parts and it's just, and I'm just hearing me or whatever, and you got to remember, hey, wait a minute, there's 5 other guys up here and we're in this together. And so I was worried. Not meaning to get off track, but I was worried that I was going to not know anybody in the Austin scene, and I still don't know a lot of guys up here. But it's changed. You know, my mindset and things since I have a family, and it's different. I'm not out networking like I used to do. I'm not doing that kind of stuff anymore.
I mean, the family is your priorities have shifted now to some of your time has to be dedicated to your family. So, I mean, so when you moved to Taylor, or playing with the guy in Taylor, because you're now currently the lead guitarist and violinist for Roger Creager.
Yeah, I'm his fiddle player now.
Fiddle player. So, how did you get into that? Was that shortly once you moved into the Austin, or did you have a relationship before then? Or
Stormy Cooper is Roger's bass player. He's been Roger's bass player for the last 300 years.
Shout out to Stormy.
Little shout out to Stormy. Yeah. And he called me out of the blue years ago. He had got my name from somebody, and I went to College Station and played a gig at a local bar in College Station with him. And shortly after that, he said, "Hey, I want you to come audition for Roger's band." You know, it was me and one other guy, and the other guy completely blew me out of the water. He's an amazing guitar player. Matt Baker.
Okay. Well, shout out to Matt Baker. All right, Matt Baker. You took the guy's gig.
But at the time, when I got that call, at that time I was playing for a guy named Doug Supernaw, who was a national touring guy.
I love that name, Doug Supernaw.
This was, and here we are. This is late 90s. And Stormy had called me a couple times over about a 5-6 year period or whatever, a couple times. Hey, so-and-so, he's quitting now. We're looking for another guy. Okay. And it just, for whatever reason, it kind of never panned out. And a few years later, I was playing in overseas with a guy named Trent Willman out of Nashville. And the day that I got back, I had a voicemail on my phone from Stormy. And hey, here's your biannual call for the gig if you're interested or whatever. And it worked this time. It took. So, and that's how I got the gig.
Interesting. So you had, it took 2 or 3 times. The third time's a charm.
Yeah. Before
y'all linked up, and you're still so. When you didn't get the gig the first time, you could have really got upset, like, forget this guy, and kind of ruin that whole relationship. But you stayed cool and with everybody, and didn't really take it personally. And
I knew years ago that they had made the wrong decision, and that it was gonna be mine.
Gonna be mine.
So
if you get something doesn't work out the first time, you see. Hey,
yeah. Well, and that's funny. It's funny because I think I told you that guy was Guitar Center's National Armageddon or Guitarmageddon run. I mean, he came in second in the national competition. The guy is an amazing guitar player. Yeah. But there again, I mean, that's where the fiddle always is what got me the gigs. Mm-hmm. This was the first gig I think I ever got where they didn't need me as a fiddle player. I didn't play any fiddle. They hired me strictly as a lead guitar player. They had a good guitar player, and he left the band, and they already had a fiddle player, great fiddle player. Mm-hmm. But here it is years later, about 6 years after I started in the band, the fiddle player left to pursue a career in something else. And Roger called me and he says, "Man, I know this isn't your first choice, and I know that, is there any way that you could just play fiddle for us and we'll hire another guitar player? Because it's a lot harder to find a, I said, yeah, I can, you know, here I am taking it for the team, whatever. No, it's been great. It's been great. And
it seems like it. You know, I've been to a couple of you guys' shows, and y'all look like y'all are having just a blast up there.
Great time. Great time.
Having a good blast. That's good, man. When you find a good band that you guys just look like you're having a blast. That's awesome. So let's talk about, so now Roger Creager does pretty good. You know, you guys are touring and playing all over. You know, Cali, y'all guys, I know y'all went to Maui. You guys have done the Willie Nelson picnic, I think, right? Or did y'all, was that with Roger Creager?
That was your boy Supernaut.
Oh, Supernaut, I'm sorry. But back to Roger, I mean, you guys have done so many cool events and festivals. So how do you now have a family? How do you balance hitting the road, you know, and then with your family? Like, so how does that work for the guys out there that maybe have a family or are interested into being in your shoes? Put you on the spot.
Yes,
with it right there.
Well, no, I really want to approach this in a good way. First and foremost, I'm very fortunate to have a good wife. Without that, it would not work from day one. It just wouldn't, because there are sacrifices.
Yeah, and that's even I just a little side note. I know your wife, just personally, she does music as well.
Yes.
She's a phenomenal singer and a writer as well. So she understands the music to a certain degree, or very, very, very large degree. But I'm saying even with that, there still are conversations and sacrifice with that. Like my wife, she doesn't do music, and we have to still have conversations and sacrifice. But I just want to hear, like you said, you go.
Yeah, there's, you know, the misconceptions of how glamorous the lifestyle can be.
Sure.
My wife knows the realities of it. She's seen the hard parts of it when she was, you know, trying to do her own thing, and she was, you know, an aspiring artist.
Sure.
Having to pay guys to come play a gig out of her own pocket because the gig just didn't pay anything.
Right.
She knows the hard parts of it. There's nothing that I can go out and do that she's not going to know. She's going to, you know, she goes, yeah, I know that sucks. You know, I know, you know, once in a while, you know, the hardest parts for me are when I'm gone. And like when we got to go do the Maui thing, I was like, man, it's a lot of money to try to bring my wife out here for 3 days or whatever. But I would have loved for her to have been there, you know, with me for that. That would have been awesome. And, you know, but she has traveled a lot with me. She's come to New York, and she's, you know, we've done the DC, you know, Washington, DC.
Yeah.
But it's a huge sacrifice, especially when something happens and I'm not there. I'll get a phone call, you know, you've been in the area long enough to know back in 2011 was the Bastrop fire, and we lost our home and everything we owned in that fire. And I'm sitting at the hotel before the show, and my wife calls me and she says, hey, we have to evacuate right now. They're making us leave, and they're not going to let us come back in here. Is there anything you need me to get out of the house? Wow. And you know, my first thought is, man, maybe I need to get home, and I need to like drive in there, because we were down in New Braunfels, and Stormy told me, he's like, man, we'll take the van and trailer and we'll go down there and we'll load it up with your stuff and get. I said, they're not going to let us in there. So I told my wife, I said, just try to make sure that all my instruments make it out, and if there's room in the car, grab the kids. So that's what I told her. But I felt awful that I could not be there for her to help. You know, she's panicking and she's running around. If I leave and I'll get on the bus and we'll be in Kansas, and my wife calls me and she'll say, hey, the water main just busted outside the house. Honey, I can't do anything. I'm sorry, you know. But it hurts. It really hurts when you can't be there to take care of the things that need to be taken care of. And so I've got a very, very understanding wife that it took a long time, I think, to get used to it. And I think now, I mean, even after with this coronavirus stuff going, Aleph, you need to get back on the road. So I think I might have been home a little too much now. So she's definitely ready for me to leave. So.
That's kind of cool though, man. Like just to hear that story, man. I think that's good for a lot of people to hear. You know that you're gonna have to be, if you want to be a touring musician. I mean, you're gonna have a conversation and think about some things. Because I guess that's any field. About sports, music, any type of entertainment. You're gonna have to be away from your family. So when you are at home, how is are you like try to be like very attentive? Like I know for me, like I do so much music, I just if I'm at home for a week, I'm gonna dedicate a day, where we'll just we might just sit on the couch and do nothing, but I'm gonna get out of my studio and I'm gonna spend some time with you on this day. We might go eat out or whatever, but and every relationship is different, but do y'all have like that one thing, or when you are at home that y'all maybe we'll remodel the house, try to work on the house, or watch it, I don't know, do something with the kids, or?
We do. It's different for me. You do a lot of producing and a lot of things that I've never had any experience in. I've never touched on any of that stuff before. I don't have a studio at home. Mm-hmm. Believe it or not, my wife actually gets mad at me sometimes because I don't play music when I'm at home. I don't. She wishes I would get my guitar out and woo her like I did back in the day, and I don't do it anymore.
You gotta remember why you got into this, right?
I know.
But yeah.
But when I come, I was really blessed for the first my youngest daughter. For the first like 8 or 10 years, I was just in local bands. I was home all the time, basically. Mm-hmm. So I never missed anything. I was able to make field day at school every year because my wife has always worked. Even when she sang, she still worked a day job. Yeah. I've been able to, make just about everything that I needed to be at for my kids and for my life. And when I started traveling more, when I got in Roger's band, it took juggling a little bit. I mean, we got married on a Sunday because we play every Saturday and every Friday, and so we did it that way on purpose. But my normal weeks at home, I don't work at home like you do. You have producing projects and you have things you got to work on. I don't. I mean, we have a little bit of property, so I spend a lot of time mowing my yard and trimming trees and
just being a normal
guy. Just being
at home. You try to be a normal guy as possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to know that as much as you are doing right now with Roger, I mean, that you are able to still come home, be a normal guy. And like I said, when you are on the road, you and your wife, y'all figure out, okay, can you go with me on this gig, or is it too expensive to go on this gig? So you guys are constant communication and figuring out ways to balance that. And that just shows that it is possible for married couples to be, figure it out and still do music. Because you hear just the perception. That's my thing. I just want to hit on some of the perceptions that we always hear that, music is glitz and glamour, which we kind of talked about. You're going to have to go through your training days and your war wounds and kind of be new booty on the market out there. You're going to, do some things that you're going to look back on and be like, man, why did I do that? But that's part of it. And, the perception that, like you said, you can't have a family and still, be in the music industry. And you're, Aleph is married, I'm married, and I think we're both, very successful musicians doing it full time. And that's, we just want to throw that out there. It is going to be some sacrifices and you are going to be flexible, but it is very, very, very possible. And I encourage you guys to maybe look for a relationship. If you are old enough and you are doing music, don't fray away from that, and think that it's going to take away everything from the music industry. Be passionate about your music, but there's plenty room for other life and things to come into your life. And you'll still have enough time and flexibility to be passionate about your music and a family as well. So
I totally agree. You can, when you get out there and you get on stage, it's your job to be a rock star.
Yeah, be a rock star on
Don't dare
stage.
try that stunt when you get home.
Yeah, and I won't lie, man. When I first got married, I think I tried to be a rock star at home, and I quickly learned that. Yeah.
Get the trash out to the end of the road.
Yeah, it's not happening at the house. Not happening at the house.
Yeah.
So shout out to my wife for not letting it happen at the house. So.
That's awesome.
So let's talk about a couple more things. Let's talk about just now where you are, just being in the game for 20 years. Just your mindset. Because people are going to look at things differently when you first started, when your mom introduced you. You're like, yeah, let's jump out there. It's cool. I've never done it. Didn't know what to expect. So that excitement came to now. You've had tons of experience. You've seen the BS. You've seen the good. I don't know if there's the roses you smelled. But what's your mindset now moving forward in your career now?
Well, because my youngest daughter she'll graduate from high school next year, and I've got a grandbaby now.
Nice.
I don't know if I'll be a lifer doing this. I used to think I would be. I was positive I was going to just keep doing this forever.
They're not going to drag you off the tour bus.
I don't know. I still look forward to some of the traveling and some of the things.
Sure.
Some of it I don't. The circuit that we play on a regular basis, if we play 120 dates a year or whatever it is, 95 of them are going to be like repeat things of things we've done, places we've been before, clubs, venues, festivals, whatever they are. So sometimes it's kind of hard to look forward to those.
Okay.
But to answer your question, I mean, you got to be careful with your finances. Being a sideman, because I'm not an artist and I don't make $20,000 myself for a show, I got to be a little bit more careful with my money. So,
are you investing maybe your money into other businesses or other ideas?
Yes, my wife and I we are part owner of a mobile X-ray company. So
what's the name of that company?
Roadrunner Radiology.
Okay.
And she is the manager, and well, I don't want to say manager. She oversees everything. I mean, she's the big cheese. So she basically manages our money. So if the business is successful, which it's been successful and it's doing really good right now, that's kind of our retirement future. So we're putting a lot of effort into that business and growing that business, because no matter what happens, I'm not going to be an artist. So I'm going to, no matter if I'm playing with Roger or playing with Florida Georgia Line, it wouldn't make any difference. I mean, I'm a sideman, and I'm going to make a sideman's pay.
Sure.
So
that's good to hear, because I mean we're each person. It's good to know where you are or what you enjoy doing, because I think so many people try to be an artist or try to be that front guy, and it's not always what you might want to be, first of all. And then second of all, if it's okay to just be a producer or a side guy or whatever, just hide out in the background. But it's good to hear that you're spreading your wings and understanding financially, I might want to invest in certain things here and there over the next year. You're thinking future, which is, man, gosh, who really talks about future and what they're going to do with their finances and music like that? Like, that's phenomenal that you and your wife, once again, with the family, have been able to come together and start a business together outside of music. I think that's phenomenal.
Yeah, the family thing, it just, I used to say, well, first of all, I used to say that, being a musician is a single man's game. It doesn't have to be. It's definitely way easier that way.
Sure.
I have buddies who had kids and they were not going to let that stop them from pursuing their music career, and they ended up leaving their kids states away so they could move to Nashville and and try it. And it's not my place to say whether that's right or wrong or good or bad or whatever. I wouldn't do that if you know, the day ever came where music was just standing in the way of me being a good dad or whatever, I'd have to stop playing. I would stop playing music, or I'd put it on hold until things were sorted out, and then I'd, you know, do it again later. But I think that it's things like what you're doing here and giving people a little taste of what it's really like. I mean, I don't make a lot of money, you know. Sure. I make enough. I would consider myself a successful musician. I make good money for what I do. I mean, there's a lot of guys that would kill to have my job and make what I make.
But it's just still not the glitz and glamour what we always see on TV. That, man, once you, like I said, people think that once you get a record label deal or travel or touring or just do music, period, that people think that you just make tons of money, that you can just go buy all these fancy cars and clothes and houses and stuff. And that's not saying that's not possible, but it's really not the reality for most of the guys out there, you know.
Absolutely. And even if you make that much money, even if you make $4 million a year playing music, if you're stupid with your money, you're still going to be broke.
Right. Very quickly.
So I mean, that's just finances. You know, you gotta be smart with your money to begin with. Doing what we do, starting out, or even unless you get extremely lucky right off the bat, you need to be smart from day one, and don't count on becoming a millionaire.
Or
playing, you know, being, you know,
count on that phone call that, hey, this is the phone call that's going to have me making gazillions of dollars.
My big deal, my big break.
George Strait coming with the last tour, you know. You know, it can't happen, but it's good to hear these stories, you guys, and you know, these are just personal stories that I'm very thankful that, you know, my friends are able to come on this podcast and open up and tell their life stories, and the whole goal of this is to, you know, he's been in it for 20 years, and if you're just starting out or you're 5 years in the game, hey, you can get to where Aleph's at, and hopefully it doesn't take, you know, 20 years to become, no, I'm just playing. But the goal of this is to save you some time with some of these stories that we've had, and you might just change your perception or, you know, the way you think at your approach to music on an everyday basis. You know, that's the main thing, you know, just knowledge is powerful, and I think you opened up in telling a little bit about the touring life of a musician. It's something that it's kind of cool for me to hear, because I've played gigs and I've done a couple tours, but I haven't been per se, you know, 85% just on the road. My main thing with music, like I said, I've been kind of 50% producing and 50% music. So to hear you able to go, like I said, to out the country and play and you know, get on the tour bus and be away for days at a time like that, and how you're able to still handle being normal, coming home and having kids. I hope it was encouraging to hear for, you know, it definitely was encouraging for me to hear, and hopefully somebody else that's listening to this podcast today for sure.
Awesome.
So is there anything else, or where can people find you guys, or what, I know right now we have this virus going on, but how are you, are y'all gigging right now?
Our first gig, I think, is June 6th down in Concan. It's a Saturday. It's free on the Frio River.
So y'all are open back up.
We'll start back in June. Yeah, we got some cancellations, but yeah, we got a few gigs. RogerCreager.com. Okay. So back after it.
Very nice, very nice. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for another episode. And guys, once again, make sure you check out Aleph Yonker, RogerCreager.com. That's his band, and guys, they're traveling all around the world. So be sure to check them out. And man, once again, my name is Kris KeyZ. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is 14 days in keys to thinking like a pro. Peace.
Thanks, Kris.